external or regulatory audit? How does an external or regulatory audit differ from an internal preliminary audit? Regulatory audit or inspection focuses on product quality regulations, while a third-party audit looks at quality improvement. A supplier audit focuses on ensuring a safe supply chain, while an internal audit looks at all three areas, which is product quality, quality improvement, and safe supply chain. Regulatory audit or inspection involves audit findings that can lead to manufacturing license revoked. How does an external or regulatory audit differ from an internal or preliminary audit? Both audits include a scribe, an auditor, and an auditee. However, for an external or regulatory audit, the auditor is the regulatory inspector, while the auditor for the internal or preliminary audit is a staff from the audited company. Why is there a need to prepare ahead of an external or regulatory audit? Preparing for an audit helps an organization to identify the potential pitfalls in a manufacturing facility. Some of the main areas to be reviewed in preparation for an impending audit include batch rejection, customers' complaint, quality deviations, and process changes. An organization can prepare any defense in advance in areas which require more attention. However, the greatest risk comes from unexpected quality deviations, changes made in the process without notification or approval, and human errors. Regulatory audit, auditor's quality. An auditor is expected to possess the following qualities. He is expected to be able to adapt to different people and situations and be wise and alert at all times. The auditor needs to possess the appropriate industrial experience so that he can ask the relevant questions to ascertain the facts. The auditor needs to have the ability to listen and not prepare the next question while listening to an answer. He needs to be open and interested in the explanation provided by the auditees. To be able to perform an audit well, the auditor needs to have the relevant knowledge of the guidelines, standards, and audit techniques. Equipped with an analytical brain, the auditor is expected to be sensitive to feelings, attitudes, and motives so as to understand what people mean when they say something. During an audit, maintaining eye contact with the auditee is important, and the ability to discuss without arguing during an audit is essential. Regulatory audit, auditor's role. Auditing is always about fact-finding and not fault-finding. Auditors should always review the effectiveness of systems and process approach rather than rely solely on documentary records. Regulatory audit, auditor's key boundaries. During a regulatory audit, an auditor is guided by the following boundary set. They include the company's certification requirements such as ISO 9001 and HACCP, its own written documents such as standard operating procedures and statutory and regulatory requirements such as FDA, packaging, and labeling guidelines. Regulatory audit, auditor's audit methodology. An auditor can adopt a number of methodologies during a regulatory audit. They include interviewing the relevant people in the audited company, verifying records and documents such as standard operating procedure, testing and calibration records. The auditor may request for certain tests or process to be witnessed during an audit to check for compliance to written procedures. In some cases, an auditor may do his own verification of process or product parameters during an audit. Regulatory audit. Auditor's responsibilities. An auditor is expected to conduct an audit as per audit schedule. Before an audit, the auditor will contact the appropriate personnel in the area being audited to establish specific date, time, and agenda for an audit. It is the auditor's responsibility to review the information related to the area being audited, such as the company's standard operating procedure. An audit checklist of questions is prepared beforehand to guide the auditor during the auditing process. Objective evidence is collected during the audit to support an audit finding. The auditor needs to report the results of the audit in a timely manner, and it is usually performed on the same day of the audit day. At times, an auditor will need to organize verification of corrective actions to an audit non-conformity from a previous audit. How should an auditee prepare for an audit? Before any audit, the auditee should perform the following document review in preparation for the audit that includes review of the company's standard operating procedures to ensure that the company is complying to the latest revision of its standard operating procedures. Documentation such as calibration and maintenance logbooks, batch records are to be reviewed to ensure completeness, and any quality deviation identified are addressed before the audit. Training records of its employees are to be checked to ensure completeness, and any deviations identified are addressed before the audit. An inspection should be carried out on the actual production or audit area before the actual audit date. How to handle a regulatory audit? The scribe's role is to record everything said, promised, and everything presented. The auditee will provide respective details on auditor's request and accompany auditor throughout the inspection. The auditor will ask questions such as asking the staff in charge of a process to describe the process, check the description against a standard operating procedure, observe the process, and check the records.